Hi, and welcome to A Better Place. As you know, this is our series on love and relationships. And today we continue with our part 2 with none other than Miss Anthea Guy. Stay tuned, we will be right back.
It's a wireless system. Cable WTN. Go digital WTN. With local TV channel 10. Call and make a date. 542-5898. Down by overseas building, Ruby and staff waiting. 48 channel, fasting with plenty more coming. News and sports from all over. Novella, Creole and Patois. Local thing is priority soon. Papiament and Taki Taki. WTN channel TV 10. We'll always be your friend. Check out the scene, we have the best rate. 542-5898. Hey man! WTN K1.
Hi, and welcome back to A Better Place. As I mentioned in the intro, we're now going to continue with our part 2 on love and relationships with our lovely guest, Miss Anthea Guy. Anthea, welcome back to A Better Place.
Thank you again.
You know, we have so much to discuss about love and relationships, and in part 1, we discussed many different areas of love and relationships. But we were talking also about loving oneself in order for you to be able to love someone else. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and share with the viewing audience some hints and some tips as to what they can do to get to know themselves better?
Yeah. We each have to, or we should, embark on a self-discovery path to learning about ourselves. Because what we do when we're in love, we expect someone to automatically know us. If you really love me, you wouldn't have to ask. We say things like that. If you really love me, you would know exactly how to please me and make me happy. And what we are doing there is we're asking somebody who really doesn't know themselves as yet, they're not mature enough, hasn't learned enough, to know someone else who also doesn't know themselves. And we're actually giving away our power because we put that burden for our happiness on the shoulders of somebody else. And what that does, we only can carry that weight so long. And sooner or later, we get emotionally burnt out in relationships. And then we look elsewhere for understanding and for comfort. And I think we're going to talk about this later, how love eventually turns into hate. But it starts with this burden and weight we put the responsibility for our happiness on others.
Right. So then just give me 2 tips. I'm a young person. I met someone that I think is going to fulfill me, because that's the word they use, or complete me. But there's so much that I don't know about myself. What 2 things is very important for me to know about myself first before I get into this relationship with someone else?
Okay. Hopefully you would understand that if I'm looking for somebody to fulfill me, I'm not ready for a relationship. No one can fulfill you. It's an inside job. You have to fill yourself up with value, with contentment, happiness. You have to know what makes you happy, and you have to be very independent and be able to find that on your own. Else you're going to fall after a while in the old trap again of making someone responsible for your happiness. The other thing, I'll just give you one general tip that's so important. Opposites usually attract. What we don't have within ourselves, we look for in other people. But we need to know that the more differences we have in characteristics, habits, hobbies, whatever, the more issues there will be to quarrel about later. Also very important in opposites attract. We can have different interests, we can have different personalities, but their core characteristics, how we feel about moral issues, money issues. There are certain core things, child rearing, that we should not be on different paths about, because usually couples are not able in the long run to get those things together. So on certain core issues, especially of moral type, we should be on the same wavelength beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because that is so true, you know, and I think it also comes back to persons wanting to change the other person, or knowing that this is something that they don't really like too much or they can't cope with, but I'm going to cope with it for now because eventually they will change. You know, why is it that we think that we can change the other person in a relationship?
Because we don't know how to change ourselves, because we don't even want to admit to ourselves that we need changing. I heard a Zig Ziglar years ago, that's a motivational speaker, and he said, he was talking about relationships, and he says, why is it that we go and we buy a Volkswagen and hope to get it home to a garage and change it into a Cadillac? Why do we do that in relationship? And the reason why I think we do that is we know that we don't have the right currency, meaning we are not developed enough to own the Cadillac. But we still think we're going to change it over time. The emotions that we feel when we're in love are so powerful, and a lot of times we're not really in love, we're in infatuation or in lust, and we mistake it for being in love. But those emotions are so powerful that we feel empowered that we can move mountains, we can do, and oh yes, I know he's beaten his wife before, whatever, but it will never happen with us. You know, I'm going to change him. This is real love. That was not real love. This is real love. Again, fooling ourselves. And it's simply because we don't have the wisdom, we don't have the experience, and this has nothing to do with age. I see people in their 50s and 60s making the same mistakes that teenagers make, just believing that, because some people, again, feel everything that went wrong, other person's fault. Have nothing to do with me. So I just have to go back out there and meet Mr. or Miss Right, and everything will be fine. Instead of understanding that in every relationship, there are lessons to be learned, and that when I get out of a relationship, I should take time to learn those lessons and to grow as a person and not jump right back in, usually on the rebound, with no more wisdom than I had the first time. And we're all guilty of that.
No, you just touched on something that you hear a lot lately, the rebound. I mean, there's even this song called I'm Looking for the Rebound Chick, you know? Yes. How do people know if it's rebound or not? Because, like you said, you know, I often think that people definitely do need to take the time after they've come out of a relationship before jumping right into another one. But you have people who just can't do that, and it's like from one relationship to the other. Yep. And like you said, hoping that this one is going to work. However, they haven't given themselves time to heal. Yeah. So how do you help yourself heal or not go into the rebound? Or can I ask, it's twofold question now. Or is a rebound relationship good to get you then stable for the real relationship?
No. Rebound, unless it's pure sex, and you know it's pure sex. That's the only thing a rebound should do. No. Right. There's an old movie, I don't know the name, but I know Sandra Bullock stars in it, where she's a drug addict and she goes to this place in rehab, and she's talking to a counselor, and she feels she's, you know, they're getting there, she's getting better, whatever, and the counselor says, and she talks about relationships, and said, no, get a plant. And if after a year it's alive, then maybe you can start thinking about dating. We really, really need to take serious time. And that time will be different for, you know, different people. But I would say minimum 6 months a year before we even think about dating or seeing anybody, if we don't want to end up in a rebound situation. But it's not just enough to wait a period of time. It's what are you doing with yourself within? Right. Are you really analyzing, maybe some therapy, you know, but what are you doing to work out how much of that went wrong is my responsibility? How could I have made better choices, wiser choices? Was I too hard on the other person? Something we do in relationships all the time. Was I measuring him by the measuring stick of every failed relationship before that, which is not fair to him or her, right? So we really need to be busy with some soul searching and seeking out answers if we need them during that period, not just sitting passive and thinking I'm going to grow as a person because I wait a year to start relationships again.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we've come to the first break again. When we come back, we'll continue with our topic on love and relationships. Stay tuned, we will be right back.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin, Saba, and Statia, powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Welcome back to A Better Place. So Anthea, we were discussing love and relationships, and you know, for me it's weird that how people could be so in love at one particular time in their relationship and then totally fall into what I would consider to be hate. You know, for me, I can't comprehend that. How is that possible?
Okay. Actually, they don't hate the person they think they hate themselves. It's very difficult for us to accept that we were wrong about trusting certain people, about the fact that we didn't take enough time to know them, we didn't give the relationship enough time to grow. So we hate ourselves for certain decisions that we don't even want to consider. It's so much easier to have what we call transference, and we transfer those emotions to the other person. This is one of the things that stops us in between different relationships from really being honest with ourselves about the mistakes that we made and take that responsibility. And therefore, in between relationships, we don't grow. And we need to really be able to accept responsibility for the decisions we made, for how long we stayed in a relationship, how much of ourselves we sacrifice for that other person or for the relationship, so that we know what not to do in another relationship and how to approach it from a better point of view.
You know, something else that comes to mind now, like you're talking about that, is also, for example, I'm going to talk now from a woman's perspective, where you've also seen women who were in a relationship, they broke away from maybe the spouse or the boyfriend, and they still love or they still want to be in a relationship with that man, but they hate the other woman. What is that? Because I would think that if you're in a relationship with someone and it doesn't go well, and maybe, because a lot of times too, the other person had absolutely nothing to do with it, why is it that they can then transfer that hate or that dislike to the woman that the ex is with, instead of actually disliking the man?
Okay.
Why is that?
It comes down to the same thing. They're unable to admit to themselves the lowness or bad character, whatever you want to call it, of the object of their affection. So they would rather transfer it to somebody who, as you said, and this is where it's harder to understand, when the person was not in the picture, was not the cause of the breakup, there's no betrayal. There was no betrayal with that person. So why would you hate somebody who's totally neutral and met him after the fact or whatever? And that's because jealousy, insecurity, but more important, that immaturity and accepting he was the one that left me or was unfaithful or treated me bad or betrayed me or whatever. But because I still want to be with him, I cannot admit that I am again making bad choices. So it's easier to blame somebody else. All lack of growth. Very normal, very human, but lack of growth.
Okay. And then this brings us to this whole thin line between love and hate. You know, earlier I mentioned that there was the movie, you know, there's a thin line between love and hate. And how do people actually get to that border, and can it be avoided?
I think that it is very difficult or much harder for people who actually practice unconditional love for themselves. And that accepting yourself, your dark side, your light side, your yin and your yang, you know, all the parts of you that you're very complex, the maturity that comes with that lets you know that you're also going to be in a relationship with somebody who's imperfect, somebody who might betray you, themselves, the relationship. Somebody who isn't going to be perfect, and you have to live with that. But then you look outside of that and you're able to focus on the positive aspects of the person. So some of us are able to leave relationships understanding that it isn't working anymore, I'm not happy, or I cannot accept the level of disrespect or betrayal, whatever went down. But I can still be big enough to see why I originally fell in love with that person. As we leave the relationship, I can still be woman enough to say, he still rubbed my feet every night. You know, he still was my knight in shining armor with certain things, and I'm not going to, locally we say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I won't throw out the whole relationship that we never had anything positive. I'm still able to celebrate that he was a good person and we had good times, but now we've just grown into two different people and we just can't be together anymore, which is the mature thing to do, especially when children are involved, so that those children can still respect the other parent, parent that you're not with and do not hear you constantly speaking badly about or in hate about usually their father if they're with their mother. Because you have to understand that child is a composite of two people. And when you, the mother, breaks down a child's father, you're breaking down half of who that person is as a human being. And it must affect them negatively. And we don't want that for our kids.
Yeah, so how do people get to that maturity then? Because it's easy for me to say, I understand everything you're saying, you know, and if ever in such a situation, you know, you would try to do the right thing. But how does one person reach to that maturity?
Constant self-work. Understanding and accepting that if I'm alive, I'm still a work in progress. I'm working on me. If I had perfected what I came here to do in this lifetime, I'd be gone. At whatever age, I would be gone. So as long as I'm still here, I have to get up in the morning, every morning, and say, what work do I have to pick back up today? What do I have to work on? And how we start is very important, goes back to self-love, how we work on ourselves. The only way it works is by accepting and forgiving myself right where I am, not where I want to go. Unconditional love is acceptance of me and you where we're at. Being human and being open and saying, I will never expect you to be perfect. I will love you just the way you are. Even when I'm upset with you, I'll come back after I calm down and tell you I still love you. That's unconditional love, knowing that we are always human and we're always on that path, a work in progress, and accepting that.
Well, Anthea, you know, we have to take a break, but when we come back, we'll discuss more about the circumvention between that love and hate relationship type thing. Thanks. Stay tuned, we will be right back.
It all came from one man's love for chicken and his secret recipe. Thanks to Colonel Sanders, today we can enjoy a new sandwich. The Boss from KFC, the best original Sanders sandwich ever. Now his original recipe of 11 herbs and spices is in the chicken, in the sauce, and sprinkled right on the bun. It's the best of KFC in every bite. That's why the boss is the boss. So good.
When I say Xerox, I know what you're thinking. Transit fares, as in the 37 billion transit fares we help collect each year. No. Oh, right. You're thinking of the 1.6 million daily customer care interactions Xerox handles, or the 900 million health insurance claims we process. So it's no surprise to you that companies depend on today's Xerox for services that simplify how work gets done, which is pretty much what we've always stood for. With Xerox, you're ready for real business.
Hi, welcome back to A Better Place. Well, Anthea, we've reached the final segment of our part 2 on love and relationships. And, you know, you've brought us a wealth of information concerning love and getting to know yourself better before you actually go into a relationship. But I wanted you to go more in depth on the whole circumvention of the love-hate part within relationship. Because for me, I think, like you said, you know, it would be so much better if we could all just path on, you know, mutual grounds of understanding. What else can you say to the viewing audience to help avoid that?
Okay. I think that I mentioned this before, but I'll go more in depth now on the fact that we need to be always in a place of growth. We need to start with our daughters when they're very young, and sons as well, that we have to get away from the idea of romantic love is the end to all of who I am. I'm just biding time growing up and going to college or doing whatever until I meet the perfect man and have the perfect children with the perfect house, and you know. That in and of itself sets our children up for so much heartbreak when we're spouting all this perfect. Okay, we need them to understand, we need our children to understand, and the best way is to model that by our lives, that there's no such thing, first of all, as a perfect person, that we shouldn't try for perfection. We should try instead to live our lives as genuinely as possible and with moral and ethics, set standards for ourselves. Instead of having a long checklist for Mr. Right and Miss Right. We should have that checklist for ourselves. What do I want to attain in my life? What type of person do I want to be? Where are my weaknesses and character? We all have them, just equal amount as we have strengths. So where are my weaknesses that I can honestly see would hamper me from having a functional, happy relationship and provide that positive environment for my children? One of the things that helped me personally, myself, a lot in life and in growth was understanding that I am here. One of the things that I'm here on this earth to do, I think each of us are, is to be God in human form. And we teach our young children, some people who are Christians, to ask when you have difficult situations, what would Jesus do? And so I started asking myself, what would the God in me do if I had all power and I could really take the higher road and make the more positive choice, be more forgiving, be more accepting? What would the God in me do? And we need to understand that we are very, very powerful. And when you hold on to hate, when you allow things to go to the point of non-forgiveness, so much hate, vindictiveness, spite, you are selling yourself short, and you're then attracting back into your life the very things that you say you don't want. Because not only will your ex also begin to feel as hateful to you, but then you will find that situations that engender hateful feelings in business transactions with your children, that's what we begin to attract. So we really need to understand that everything we want in life, we are the original source. We are made in the image of God, which means that the powers that God have, we have. And those powers include overcoming negativity, overcoming unrealistic expectations, being too immature in our thinking, and not accepting and forgiving of others. A lot of people break up over things that if we just learn to accept and forgive, could be worked out. You know, they're not horrific things that most people break up over. But that lack of my pride, it has to be my way or no way. And I can't survive knowing that you ever did that to me. Or for one day in your life, you didn't love me the way I wanted. Some of these things are very childish. I remember years ago, there was a song that said, do you love her? And the answer was, sometimes. You know, and we all have to be mature to understand we are not going to daily get 50-50 of give and take in a relationship. Sometimes we have to be the bigger person and give 90% when our spouse is down. He's had something, he lost his job, whatever, and he needs you to be there 90%. He might only be able to give 10. That is what true love is. We have to love him at that moment, for better or worse. And that will be his worst day, because guess what? Maybe next week or next month or next year, we're going to need our spouse to be there 90% for us. That's maturity.
And nowadays, you find where and I think I am guilty of it as well with my daughter more than my son, where I am constantly empowering her to be that independent person and to not look towards when she gets older. Mind you, she's only 4, but you know that. Be that independent person, love yourself, you know that you're beautiful from inside out. You know, always with these encouraging, positive words. Do you think that that helps to make women more of the, what some men might say, like they consider them to be, oh, she's so independent and she doesn't need a man? Or does you think that that just helps to make a woman a better person and get to know themselves better?
It makes a woman stronger, but we have to be very careful. There's a thin line again between women who feel they're so strong that they need a man for nothing. And so we need to also teach our children the beauty of that love between a man and a woman, between partners, regardless, because we now have same-sex partner, but between partners. We are not an island. We were not created to be an island and to be alone, and we need companionship. And so we have to walk that line with, you need to be independent and responsible for yourself, but you also need companionship and the beauty of being able to grow in companion with somebody, accept forgiveness, and be able to get along and lean on each other when necessary. Life can be rough. We really need to have that kind of relationship that when you go home, you're in a safe harbor and you're there for each other to support each other, including when you're down and weak. We have to learn not to look down on each other when we're going through a rough patch and we're weak. It's only then that we should love, and that's unconditional love. Loving no matter what. And
you know, and like I talked about my daughter, and now with sons, you know, and it's all in the realm of loving relationships where we tend to want them to be brisk and, you know, to man up and you shouldn't cry for this or you shouldn't cry for that, or you're too emotional. How can we get out of that cycle as well and allow them to grow to be, because I think what has happened, and especially in our culture, is we so want them to be the man before their time that when they reach to that phase, then we're encountering the problems where now we feel that they're not compassionate enough and they're not giving enough as to what a woman thinks a man should give a woman in a relationship.
Yeah.
How can we circumvent that as well and allow that not to happen to our sons?
I think there should be a lot of discussions among us as adults, whether it's grandparents, parents, or whatever, and then later with our children about what a man is. For instance, since we're talking about the males, what is a man? When I used to work with the schools, I used to tell the males all the time, cockroaches are men too. You know, there's male in every, they foul cocks, there's whatever. But I think being able to be a strong man that you support, you defend, you take care of, but you know when to cry, when to tenderly hold a baby, when to rub the feet, when to kiss, that also. Men have a very, very powerful softer side that we women need in order for a relationship to be balanced. But if as mothers, as parents, we shame that softer side out of our men, then they're not able to, they can't call it on just like that, because we have already taught them that's not what a man is all about. We need balance.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm going to have to invite you back here, you know, because we've still not covered everything and we've already come to the end of the program. Yes. I want to thank you so much for having been a guest on A Better Place, because, you know, the program is about empowering families and persons to try and create that better environment for all. So thanks once again, and I'm going to get you back sooner than later.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. And to you, the viewing audience, I would like to thank you for having been a part of A Better Place. Stay tuned for our future programs. I'm your host, Angelique Rumu.